He was sitting on the edge of the exam table pants, still halfway up, eyes low, voice even lower. "Doc," he said, "I didn't think it would happen this fast. 1 year I was fine. The next, it felt like something in me just turned off." He wasn't talking about his heart or his blood pressure. He was talking about something quieter, something no man likes to admit is slipping. His words echoed what I've heard for over 40 years in private rooms, behind closed doors, the kind of conversations that never make it into waiting rooms or dinner table talk, not because they're shameful, but because they're vulnerable. The truth is, most men don't realize their penis ages just like their joints, their memory, or their spirit. Not all at once. But little by little, function fades, confidence drifts, and the part of you that once felt strong and alive starts to grow quiet. I'm Dr. Thomas Layton. I've listened to retired soldiers, factory workers who gave their lives to labor, and fathers who once hoped but now feel worn down. They all carry a quiet burden. And one of the heaviest, I've found, is the belief that nothing can be done. But here's what I want you to know. It's not too late. Not if you're willing to care. Not if you're willing to listen to your body with the same patience you'd offer a loved one. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 small, powerful ways to take care of your manhood as you age. And none of them require a prescription. If this message speaks to you, type 1. If you're unsure, type 0. Either way, thank you for listening. Let's start with a truth that may feel uncomfortable, but it's where so much of your strength begins. You have to keep using it. Now, I don't mean you have to perform like you did at 25. That's not the point. What I'm talking about is activity, circulation, connection. The quiet maintenance of function like stretching a stiff joint or brushing a fading memory. You see, when the penis isn't used regularly, it begins to change. Blood flow decreases. Elasticity weakens. And deep inside, in the smooth tissue that once responded so naturally, a kind of stillness sets in. We call it disuse atrophy, and it's more common than you'd think. But, and this is important, it's also completely reversible. Staying sexually active doesn't have to mean intercourse. It can mean solo touch. It can mean using a vacuum device. It can mean simply staying connected to sensation, to breath, to arousal in whatever form still feels right. Because here's the quiet reality. Your body responds to use, no matter your age. And your identity, your sense of being a man often follows. I've seen men in their 70s turn things around not with pills, but with attention, with presence, with the decision to not give up on this part of themselves. One man told me, "Doc, I didn't realize how much of myself I'd buried until I felt something again, even a little, and suddenly I remembered who I was." It's not about performance. It's about pride, and the kind of dignity that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. But if staying active is step 1, then step 2 is just as vital and just as overlooked. It's about how you clean yourself. Now, I know that might sound simple, maybe even silly. But after decades in medicine, I can tell you this. Some of the most painful conditions I've treated in older men started with hygiene. Not dirtiness, mind you, but a lack of adaptation. See, as we age, the skin down there gets thinner. The immune system slows. Things don't heal like they used to. And what once passed as good enough in our 30s doesn't cut it anymore. Especially if you're uncircumcised. You've got to be careful. The area beneath the foreskin can trap moisture, bacteria, and dead skin, and left unchecked, that can lead to infections, foul odor, and yes, even cancer. The fix? It's not complicated. Gentle washing with warm water and mild, unscented soap. Pull the foreskin back if you have one. Rinse, dry fully, and always clean after intimacy. It takes a minute, but the ripple effect is bigger than you'd think. Because what I've found is this. When a man takes care of that part of himself with the same respect he gives to his teeth, his hair, or his heart, something changes. He walks taller. He feels cleaner, clearer, more in control. And for many older men, control is something they haven't felt in a long time. But hygiene isn't just about cleanliness, it's about awareness. And that awareness can protect you from something far worse, something I've seen far too often in men who thought they were just doing their best. I'm talking about injury. There's a hidden danger that creeps in during moments of intimacy, moments when the body is willing, but not quite ready. And it happens when you try to move forward with a semi-erect penis. You might not feel pain right away, but inside, small tears form. Micro-traumas, we call them. Over time, those tears harden into scar tissue, and eventually they can pull and twist the penis into painful curves. We call that Peyronie's disease. Some men can't have intercourse at all once it progresses. Others live in silent discomfort for years, ashamed or too embarrassed to speak up. But this isn't about shame. This is about patience. It's about recognizing that your body deserves time to become fully erect before penetration, time to respond to touch and trust and warmth. If you rush it, you risk it. And there's no award for powering through pain, just long-term consequences. So take your time, use lubrication, let medications do their job before you move forward. Talk with your partner, be honest, be slow. Because slowness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I once treated a man named Harold, 68, retired, lived alone since his wife passed 5 years earlier. He came in not for a prescription, but for answers. He'd noticed something strange. When he was alone, things worked fine. But when he was with someone, when real touch, real connection entered the room, everything fell apart. It's like my body forgot what to do, he told me. But Harold wasn't broken. What he was experiencing is something I've seen more and more in recent years, and it's tied to a silent habit that many older men turn to without even realizing the cost. I'm talking about pornography. Now, let me be clear, I'm not here to scold or shame. Life gets lonely. Desire doesn't fade, even if opportunity does. And for many men, porn becomes a private way to feel something again. But here's what we don't talk about enough. The brain is a pattern-seeking machine, and over time it starts to crave only what it's used to, fast, visual, isolated. So when you try to shift from screen to skin, from fantasy to reality, the body doesn't know how to respond, not because you're too old, but because the wiring has changed. That's called desensitization, and it doesn't just affect arousal, it affects connection. I've had men cry in my office, telling me they feel broken, that they still want closeness, but their bodies betray them. And more than that, they feel ashamed, as if they've failed at being a man. But the truth is, they were never given a map, just handed a screen and left to navigate desire alone. So if that's you, if you've been relying on porn to feel something, I want to offer another path. Not deprivation, not guilt, but redirection. Use your memory. Use imagination. Use real connection, no matter how small. You might feel rusty at first, awkward, but over time, those old pathways, the ones built on emotion, touch, patience, they come back, like a language you thought you'd forgotten. And with them comes something more precious than pleasure, intimacy. Because that's what we're really after, isn't it? To be known, to be wanted, to feel alive, not just aroused. Limiting porn isn't about saying no to yourself. It's about saying yes to something deeper, richer, more human. And that brings me to the final pillar of this quiet restoration, one that doesn't cost a dime, but may demand the most from you. It's your lifestyle. Over the years, I've had hundreds of men walk into my office asking for pills, a quick fix, a shortcut to feeling young again. And sometimes, medication has its place. But more often than not, what they really needed wasn't in a bottle. It was in their kitchen, their shoes, their breath, their choices. Erectile function, and by extension, confidence is built on blood flow, and blood flow is built on the heart. So if your arteries are stiff, if your cholesterol is high, if you're smoking, drinking heavily, staying up late, sitting all day, then no pill in the world can undo what your lifestyle is doing. But here's the hopeful part. The body is remarkably forgiving. When you move, even gently, circulation improves. When you eat cleaner, more berries, greens, fish hormones start to balance. When you drink water instead of whiskey, sleep instead of scrolling, connect instead of isolating, your body listens. One man I worked with, Ron, started walking 20 minutes a day after years of being sedentary. That's it, 20 minutes. After 3 weeks, he said, "Doc, I feel like someone flipped a light switch." His blood pressure dropped, his energy returned, and yes, his intimacy improved. Not because of a miracle cure, but because he chose to show up for his body again. That's the secret most ads won't tell you. You don't need to chase youth. You need to nourish what you have. And when you do, when your body sees that you're paying attention, it responds. Not with perfection, but with possibility. If you're finding this helpful or you're just starting to think differently about your health after 60, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way, you won't miss future insights made just for men like you. Now, before we close, I want to share one final tip. Quiet, simple, and surprisingly powerful. It happens when you sleep. Most men don't realize that during the night, their penis goes through cycles of spontaneous erections. It's the body's natural way of keeping the tissue healthy, oxygenated, elastic, responsive. But if you're sleeping in tight underwear, snug briefs, restrictive fabrics, you could be unintentionally compressing those erections. Over time, that pressure builds. Not enough to wake you, but enough to interfere with circulation. Enough to slowly irritate or even scar the tissue. That's how Peyronie's disease can begin in silence. So here's the adjustment. Sleep without underwear. Or if full nudity feels uncomfortable, switch to loose-fitting boxers. Let your body breathe. Let it restore. You may not feel the difference right away, but give it time. Your body knows what to do when given the chance. And if you're thinking, could something this small really matter? Yes. Sometimes, the smallest acts of care are the ones that speak the loudest. Because when you combine all of this activity, hygiene, patience, moderation, movement, and rest, what you're really doing is honoring yourself. And that honoring yourself is the part most men forget. They think it's too late, that their best years are behind them, that the body they have now is a shadow of the one they knew. But that's not what I see. I see men who've survived grief, stress, loss, and labor. Men who still get up each morning, even when their joints ache and their confidence wavers. Men who haven't given up, they've just grown quiet in the places that once spoke the loudest. And when they begin to care again, to choose attention over avoidance, presence over pride, something remarkable begins to happen. They feel alive. Not in the way youth sells it, not fast cars, loud nights, and conquest, but in the way a man feels when he's fully present in his skin, when he knows his body, not as a machine, but as a companion, when he touches without shame, breathes without rushing, sits beside his own silence without needing to hide it. See, aging isn't about shrinking. It's about seeing. Seeing what still works, what still matters, what still stirs in you when the world gets quiet. That stirring, that's your dignity, and it deserves a voice. So let's bring it all together. You've learned how essential it is to keep your penis active not just for pleasure, but for health and pride. You've seen why Hygiene gentle, consistent care can protect you from infections and reclaim your sense of control. You understand the risks of forcing yourself too soon, of rushing into intimacy without readiness, and how patience protects more than performance. You've heard the truth about pornography not as a shameful secret, but as a habit that, over time, can interfere with the very connection you seek. And you've seen how lifestyle, food, movement, rest, and community powers not just your erections, but your energy, your mood, and your self-worth. Then there's that small, final shift, sleeping without tight clothing to let your body restore itself without interference. These aren't just tips. They're not bullet points in a brochure. They are ways of being, ways of living with more dignity, ways of listening to yourself, even in the quietest corners. I had a patient named Glenn, 72, widowed, former construction foreman. Hadn't been intimate in over a decade. Said he felt invisible, useless. Like everything valuable about him had been spent and thrown away. But we talked, not just about medicine, but about music, cooking, walking barefoot in the morning, about small rituals of attention. He started making different choices, not heroic ones, just consistent. A short walk before breakfast, cutting back on beer, sleeping in loose boxers, taking time to touch his body without judgment. He told me, "Doc, I didn't think anything would change, but I feel more like myself now than I have in years." And that's the point. It's not about going back. It's about coming home. To yourself, your breath, your worth. To that part of you that still longs to be seen, held, respected not by others first, but by you. You'd be amazed what happens when a man begins to respect himself again. His shoulders soften, his tone steadies, his sense of humor returns. And in that space, intimacy becomes possible not just with a partner, but with life itself. That's the quiet medicine I've witnessed for decades, and it never gets old. So if you felt disconnected lately from yourself, from desire, from your partner, I want you to remember this. It's not your fault. Aging isn't failure. But ignoring it, giving up, pretending you don't miss that part of yourself, that's the only real loss. Because underneath it all, the pills, the procedures, the pressure, what most men want is simple. To feel like a man again. Not just in body, but in soul. And I believe you can. Not overnight, but gradually. In small acts of self-respect. So instead of reaching for something to fix you, try reaching inward. Ask yourself, what would care look like right now? Not just maintenance, but kindness? Maybe it's a better meal, a cleaner shower, a slower breath, a new pair of shoes, or an honest word spoken out loud, even if it trembles. Start there. And if you feel resistance, good. That means something in you still wants to fight for the life you deserve. Not a life without age, but a life with presence, with choice, with self-respect. I'm proud of you for making it this far, for listening, not to me, but to yourself, to the voice that's been whispering, don't give up on this body, don't give up on this man. You haven't died, and that makes all the difference. If this message touched you, perhaps share it quietly, as it was shared with you, with a friend, a brother, a man who's been too quiet for too long. And if you'd like more conversations like this, steady, grounded, and made just for men like you, I invite you to subscribe. There's more to say, and we'll say it together.